Live from the Mert Park, USA, I'm Tavis Smiley, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580. 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you to download our app at KBLA 1580. Download the app and take us with you anywhere in the world and listen to us in real time, but only by downloading the app at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of this program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast of this program and listen at your leisure. Should you miss us any day in real time, but I am delighted to have you along live with us today for the next 3 hours. Let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show for you today, the day after. In our second hour, ahead of Veterans Day this Friday, civil rights expert and Dartmouth history professor Matthew Delmont joins us to unpack his new book, Half American, the epic story of African Americans fighting World War II at home and abroad. Professor Delmont's text is filled with compelling narratives that outline with, I think, nuance, rigor, and complexity how black folk fought for this country abroad while simultaneously fighting for their rights here at home. Black historian Matthew Delmont joins us today in hour 2. In our third hour, you know that theme music, don't you? Emmy-nominated actor and Grammy-winning recording artist Malcolm Jamal Warner joins us for a career conversation, forever known as Theo Huxtable on the beloved and groundbreaking sitcom The Cosby Show. Malcolm Jamal Warner is busier than ever with his music, his acting, his directing, and his writing. His most recent spoken word album, Hiding in Plain View, might just win him another Grammy Award. Malcolm Jamal Warner joins us today in hour 3. But in this first hour, 2 more conversations. On the B side of this hour, we will speak with our chief national political affairs analyst and host of A More Perfect Union, heard Sundays on the 10s here on KBLA Talk 1580, Nicola Corte. Dr. Corte is also co-host of Fox Soul's Black Report, and we will continue dissecting the meaning of yesterday when he joins us on the backside of this hour. We commence today's show, though, and our conversation about the meaning of yesterday with Dr. Jason Nichols, political and social analyst at the University of Maryland. Dr. Nichols, good to have you on this program, sir. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. And I just want to say that you interviewed me about 20 years ago. It was my first interview, so it's definitely good to come full circle, and I congratulate you on all your success right now with your radio station.
I congratulate you as well, and I'm glad to be a part of this full circle moment 20 years later. So thank you for those kind words, and I'm just delighted to know that over that 2-decade period, you've been doing your work in witness, and you've earned your way back on this program, Dr. Nichols, and I'm delighted to have this conversation with you for the first 30 minutes of this hour. Let me start with this. When you went to bed, I was going to say when you woke up, we woke up this morning, and we're still trying to figure out who won certain races here in L.A., where this radio station is flagship. We're still waiting to see if Karen Bass will make history as the first black woman, the first woman, period. The second African-American behind Tom Bradley, who I had the honor of working for, to see if Karen Bass will become mayor of the city of Angels. So we're still waiting in L.A. as other people are around the country. But when you went to bed last night, you went to bed knowing that in Maryland, y'all had a new governor, Wes Moore.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, that was not a shock. We all kind of expected that he would have a huge victory. And so we kind of knew that was going to happen. He was running against just a terrible candidate in Dan Cox. So, you know, while there were a lot of things in question, we pretty much understood, unless there was some sort of malfeasance, that Wes Moore was going to be our next governor and be, I think, the third black elected governor nationwide, in addition to, Doug Wilder, and
Deval Patrick in Massachusetts. Deval Patrick,
exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, it's a good feeling here in Maryland. You know, we're in good shape. Other parts of the country are still in question, but Maryland is safe, and we flipped it. And that's one of the things that I think isn't also talked about, is the fact that we've had Republican governors. 2 out of our last 3 governors have been Republicans, and we were able to flip it back blue. and bring it back and let a brother bring it home.
Yeah, I've known Wes for years. I've known him and his mother Joy. They're dear friends of mine. I've known them for decades now. So I celebrate Wes's election as governor of Maryland last night. Let me ask you, to your point, since Wes is only the third elected black governor since Reconstruction here, what do you make of the fact that black people are starting to show, of course Obama being the extreme example, but African Americans are getting to the place now where we're showing that we can not just govern our own communities but govern theirs as well, that we're being accepted again in places here and there, not as much as we'd like, but we're starting to see this sort of breakthrough where certain African Americans can appeal to the broader masses of people and get elected to chief executive positions like governor of Maryland.
I think we should have had that inclination going back to Harold Washington. Mm-hmm. You know, that we can go and cross lines because we are qualified, because there is no group of Americans that's any more American than we are, and we have the qualifications to be able to govern anybody in this country and through this system. So we should have already had that, but of course there are always obstacles in the way of African. We've done a good job, as we've done throughout history, of removing those obstacles. And, of course, Obama was the big beneficiary. Before that, you know, Harold Washington went over into Asian communities and into Latino communities and even into some working-class white communities and said, I'm your guy. And they saw the potential in him. And I think people in Maryland saw that in Wes Moore. He didn't just win in Baltimore City or in Prince George's County. He won in Howard County, in Montgomery County, and even in some, you know, places he got some votes out in Western Maryland, which is basically West Virginia. Mm-hmm. And he was able to do that. So I think, you know, we should have that confidence. It's going to take people coming through and breaking barriers and saying, I can win these elections. And I think we'll see more of it around the country.
Yeah. And the amazing thing about Wes, as you know, is Wes had never run for public office. It's his first time running, and he wins. Right. He wins the gubernatorial race in Maryland. So it was a great night for Wes Moore, a great night for black people and people writ large, of course, in the great state of Maryland. But it wasn't a good night for other national black leaders on the ballot in states across the country that we thought had a chance of winning. So when we come forward, Dr. Jason Nichols on KBLA Talk 1580, we'll talk about those other places. Of course, in Georgia, still too close to call. We'll talk about that. But there were a significant number of other African Americans we thought last night might make some big national news. It didn't quite happen. And the question is why? Or put another way, why not? You're listening to Tavis Smiley and Jason Nichols, Dr. Jason Nichols on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Extra, extra, read all about it, read all about it, read all about it.
In recent editions of the Los Angeles Standard newspaper, read about HBCU's impact in Los Angeles. The Screening Room LA meeting at the Gathering Spot in West Adams, giving black filmmakers a place to showcase their work. To codename Crenshaw Boulevard, Malcolm X Boulevard. Hotville Chicken brings Nashville hot chicken to the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw block. The Engineer Factory, preparing black children for STEM majors and professions. Jan Perry addressing as she runs for Congress. Shauna Charles, career in public relations. Local black hiking groups. And Los Angeles Philharmonic Inglewood headquarters hosting free music classes for local children. Read about these stories at LAStandardNewspaper.com and follow this black-owned publication on Facebook and Instagram.
Have you heard it?
Going out big, staying in snug. Whatever you're up to this holiday season, Ulta Beauty has everything you need to add a little bit of shimmer and a whole lot of shine. Because our kind of holiday is you having your kind of holiday. Shop fan-favorite brands like Fenty, Dyson, and Drunk Elephant. Plus so much more. Now's the time to glow your way. Go ahead and visit your local Ulta Beauty or buy online and pick up in store. Ulta Beauty. The possibilities are beautiful.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Slash to be in your band.
Next up for lead guitar. You're in.
Cool.
Yep, even easier than that. And with no fees or minimums on checking and savings accounts, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in KBLA.com/bank for details. Capital One and A member FDIC.
Hi, I'm Sedarius Blaine, actor from the Jumanji movies, The Big Leap on Fox, Charmed, and more. I started an all-inclusive luxury travel club called Top Shelf Getaways that's now visited 14 countries in the last 2 years and counting. Now, we're rolling out our local staycations so you can experience the excitement and spirit of adventure that we're known for right here in Southern California. Starting November 11th, come join us for a celebration of excellence as we honor some of Hollywood's biggest legends at the W Hotel in Hollywood, California. Our staycation will feature live performers, singers, magicians, mixologists, and private chefs, as well as a private screening of Black Panther Wakanda Forever at the world-famous TCL Chinese Theater and an after party. Transportation from the hotel and overnight stay at the W are included. November 12th will be our bottomless brunch pool party sponsored by El Cristiano Tequila. All of this for only $500 per person, $800 per couple, or select the locals rate to indulge in Friday night only. Follow us on Instagram or visit TopShelfGetaways.com to secure your tickets today. We can't wait to see you. And don't forget to wear your all-black cocktail attire.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tavis Smiley. He is Dr. Jason Nichols out of the University of Maryland, and I'm delighted to have him in conversation for the next 15 minutes before we move to the B side of this hour and joined by our chief national political analyst, Dr. Nicola Corte, continuing throughout the hour to talk about what happened yesterday, or put another way, what did not happen yesterday. So, Dr. Nichols, we established earlier that Wes Moore had a great day in Maryland yesterday, becoming the third elected black governor in this country since Reconstruction, but not so much for others. We had high hopes for Val Demings in Florida, who lost to Marco Rubio. We had high hopes for Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, who lost that race. We are still waiting on the outcome of the Warnock Walker race. That's been back and forth. I fully expect, of course, a runoff in that race. Mandela Barnes could not pull it out in Wisconsin. So there were a number of high-profile African Americans on the ballot in states across the country that could have, in fact, changed the makeup of the Senate. Not only could the Democrats have held on to the Senate, as we know, the House Senate still in flux right now. Still too early to call who controls either chamber of Congress. But those African Americans, if elected last night, would have changed not just the color, but indeed the ideological makeup of the U.S. Senate, where we seem to get nothing done these days. What do you make of the fact that these national black political leaders were good enough, qualified enough, talented enough to get on the ballot, but in none of these places could actually pull this off?
Well, so for the first thing that I'd have to say is I'm going to be critical of Democrats and the Democratic establishment. I think that they should have put a little more weight behind Sherry Beasley. Like, people barely knew race was neck and neck, and we saw what happened with Cal Cunningham, that was a winnable race. If he hadn't had an affair at the last second, that was a winnable race in 2018. And here you go now, an opportunity to win this seat with a really qualified official, someone who has won statewide before. And the Democrats really didn't put any weight behind her. They did for Mandela Barnes, which, again, I think that's a tough race, particularly in an inflationary environment. And we know what it is when you have the first term of a White House. They're usually gonna have a tough time winning statewide elections. Their party. So I understood, but I didn't understand the calculus in North Carolina, why they did not put anything behind that. And Val Demings, again, was against really, they put money into that and not into Sherry Beasley. I think it was just, kind of a poor calculation. And, in Florida is Florida. Florida's a strange place. Val Demings, you can't put defund the police on her. You can't, because she's a cop. You can't do a lot of the things that you can do with other Democrats to make them less attractive to moderates. But it's just, Florida is not necessarily the same state that it was in 2000, where it was evenly split. I think Florida is becoming like Ohio. It's becoming more of a red state. North Carolina, on the other hand, is a purple state, and we can win those races, but the National Democratic Party did not put the resources behind Sherry Beasley's race, and she had a strong ground game and respect to that sister, but she should have gotten more support. Instead, the DNC and, this wasn't her, but, of course, the DCCC, they were putting money behind, election deniers, hoping that they were going to be easier candidates. And, sometimes that worked and other times it didn't. But I think they could have put some of their resources behind someone like Sherry Beasley.
Yeah. What do you make of that? I'm glad you put your finger on that. I had Jamie Harrison on this program. He's been on a number of times. It'll be fascinating to know in the days ahead how he feels about what happened last night. Again, he's the chair of the DNC and from South Carolina, as you well know, ran for the Senate himself in South Carolina. So to your point about why they didn't support Sherry Beasley more in North Carolina, I hear you loud and clear, and I couldn't agree more on that. Particularly given that the chairman of the party is from that neck of the woods. That said, right. I asked him this question a few weeks ago, and he was on, and he tried to dip around it, but I know you won't because you put your finger on it already, which is this idea that in some of these races leading up to the midterms last night, Democrats put money behind these election deniers to help get them on the ballot so they could then defeat them. Now, Malcolm X once said, by any means necessary, but there's something strange to me about Democrats literally putting money behind Republican election deniers to get them on the ballot, clearing out the field so they can then defeat them. I think I get it strategically, but there's something about that that just sticks in my craw. How do you process that?
Yeah, I don't think that was a smart use of your resources.
Yeah.
You want to tell the American people what it is you've done for them, what it is you will do for them. And I think they did a good job. Obviously, they turned out women with the abortion issue. And I think that there's accomplishments and what they have accomplished, for the American people. But I think that putting your money, your resources, which are always finite and limited, into the other team's pocket doesn't make sense to me. Put it to boost up your candidates. Use your money and your resources for ads. We know that according to Sheldon Whitehouse's book, which I will say I haven't read yet, but Sheldon Whitehouse's book says that there was $1 billion of dark money put behind these Republican candidates. So you're going to put extra money in their pockets? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
It did work in some cases. I think Wes Moore, for example, was going to win regardless. It didn't matter who you put in there with Wes. I think he's just an impressive guy, and he's, somebody who was going to win those races. I think using your resources that way was just not a smart use. And it did get us some more election deniers, and we're going to, they're going to reap the repercussions of that. We're going to see an impeachment if they. It looks like they will.
Yeah, no question about that. The investigations are coming. The impeachment of Joe Biden is coming based on what I do not know, but for them it doesn't really matter. They'll find something on which to hang their hat when it comes to impeachment. Speaking of Joe Biden, we are told this morning that the White House is, quoting one source, Jen Psaki, in fact, former press secretary to the president, is quoted this morning as saying the White House is giddy and gleeful this morning. Giddy and gleeful. And they are giddy and gleeful because the shellacking that they thought they were going to take, they didn't take. I'm wondering, though, to your mind, whether or not that's reason to be giddy and gleeful.
I don't know if giddy and gleeful is how far I would go, but definitely they should be breathing a sigh of relief.
Right.
We saw what happened to Obama in his first term where, there was blood in the hallways.
Yeah.
It was like, what was it, 60 seats or something like that. And then Trump, in his first term, losing 40 seats. Getting the results that we've seen, particularly these gubernatorial races. I mean, Kathy Hochul pulled it out, and of course in the Senate, you win Pennsylvania, you flip that seat. Those are good results, and we'll see what happens in the long run. I still think Warnock is going to beat. When there's a runoff, the ground game in Georgia is strong. I think that Warnock is going to win that race. And we'll see what happens in Arizona. Arizona's a mess. I think there's a chance they could keep the Senate. And of course, the House looks like they're gonna lose it, but they didn't lose it as big as we've seen in recent history. And I think that is something to be relieved about, but giddy and gleeful, I think, is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're still going to get impeached. You're
Yeah.
still going to get all these investigations that are going to be long, and you're not going to get anything done for the American people. And you're going to have to veto security and cut, Medicare, Medicaid, and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I was also thinking this morning that the one thing that Joe Biden did immediately when he got in office is to start undoing all of the executive orders that Donald Trump had signed into law. And now that Joe Biden is going to have a divided government, it looks like he'll start doing the same thing, trying to govern by executive order, right? It's fascinating how you undo Trump's executive orders and you end up having to govern by executive order if, in fact, he ends up with a divided government, which it appears that he likely will. You mentioned Georgia a moment ago. I did not put on that list, and I should have, not just about Demings losing in Florida and Sherry Beasley and Mandela Barnes, but perhaps the biggest of all, Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Stacey ran a spirited campaign 4 years ago. I said on this station last night, and you teach this stuff every day, so you know this better than I. It's one thing to run for an open seat. It's another thing to run against an incumbent. Last night, Brian Kemp was an incumbent, and she did far worse this time around than she did the first time. And I kind of feel sorry for Stacey in the sense that she helped get all these other folk elected. I mean, she helped get Raphael Warnock elected and John Ossoff. And she passed on a chance to have that Senate seat. I mean, if Stacey had wanted it, Warnock wouldn't have been in the Senate. If Stacey Abrams had wanted the seat after John Lewis died, she could have had that congressional seat. She passed on a congressional seat. She passed on a Senate seat because she wanted to run for governor once again, and last night she went up in smoke.
Yeah, I mean, it was heartbreaking. I think she actually ran a good campaign. She won all those debates, far and away. So did Val Demings, but she won those debates. She did everything she could to win this race. It just didn't work out for her this time, and I personally, and this may not be a popular thing to say, I know you're broadcasting in California, so it may not be popular, but I think she should have been the running mate, in 2020. Mm-hmm. But I think, they went a different direction and it worked out for them. But the person who brought Georgia in 2020, not only for those Senate candidates, but for the President of the United States right now, is Stacey Abrams. She should, I think, pop back up and run for some sort of congressional seat in Georgia, and I think she'll win. But statewide, right now, particularly, there were a lot of working class, black people, I think, black women largely backed Stacey Abrams, but there were a few black men that I talked to who were upset with, some of the COVID restrictions. Mm-hmm. And actually thought that because Brian Kemp was one of those governors who didn't require masking and didn't require vaccines and a lot of things, they kind of sided with him. So you saw a little bit of a switch over there. Yeah. It was a tough race, man, and I feel so bad for Stacey. She looked like she lost weight for the race. She did everything, everything. Yeah. And it just didn't work out for her.
Now, in the coming days, we've discussed it a couple of times already around it, but in the coming days, there's going to be some unpacking to do. I hope to have you back on when we get to this unpacking. Once we get through this phase of knowing who actually won what and who's actually going to control what, we'll come back to this conversation that you just put your finger on once again, because I think that we can't run away from it, and that is the votes of black men. It was a huge piece in the New York Times earlier this week. You probably saw about both parties now going after African-American men. And to your point about Brian Kemp siphoning off a number of black male votes, Killer Mike caught a bunch of hell in Georgia for meeting with Brian Kemp. So you know this conversation as well as I do about the siphoning off of the votes of black men and whether in the months and years to come Republicans are going to continue to do that and to win close races like the one between Kemp and Stacey Abrams in Georgia. We got to get a handle on that. We have to understand what it is that's making these black men feel so disaffected and start to address that issue. So in the coming weeks, we will do that around here, and I look forward to having you back for that conversation. For now, Jason Nichols, thank you for your work and your witness. Good to be connected with you 20 years later. Honored to be a part of this full circle moment, and all the best to you as you continue your work at the University of Maryland. Good to have you on, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me, brother.
My pleasure. When we come forward after news, traffic, and sports, we'll be joined by our chief national political affairs analyst and the moderator of A More Perfect Union, heard Sundays on the 10s, right here on KBLA Talk 1580, our friend Dr. Nee Cordelai Corte. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
And here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Maryland has elected its first black governor. Here's Trey Thomas.
Wes Moore became only the 3rd black elected governor in U.S. history. The best-selling author and former head of the anti-poverty organization Robin Hood declared victory in Baltimore Tuesday night. He defeated Republican candidate Dan Cox, who was behind in the polls throughout the campaign. Moore will take over for Republican Governor Larry Hogan. I'm Trey Thomas.
Also in Tennessee, slavery will likely be removed from Tennessee's Constitution. Most votes have been counted, and Tennesseans seem to have voted overwhelmingly in favor of Constitutional Amendment 3. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
This drive for the cold Wednesday morning, it's going to be Pomona right now clearing. 71 north at Mission. Mentioned that earlier. Onto the right side, you're busy here from the 60. South LA at top on the 110 north, north 110 at Vernon Avenue. Crash to the right side as you get to Century Boulevard. You're on and off the brakes. Stalled vehicle trying to clear from the center lane in the Sepulveda Pass. 405 south, top of the hill, Mulholland Screwball center lane block there. You're kind of no-go from Nordoff. And Sunback looks like the right lane in the shoulder there with some flooding. We're slow from San Fernando Mission Boulevard.
Do you need new blinds or shades? Blindster.com offers custom-made blinds, shades, and shutters shipped directly to you at prices less than big box retailers. Blindster blinds are easy to install and guaranteed to fit. Don't overpay for new blinds. Shop today and save big. Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
If the Rams decide not to re-sign Odell Beckham Jr., he won't have any trouble moving on to another team. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said he's very interested in signing one of the NFL's premier wide receivers. The New York Giants have also inquired about Beckham. Because Beckham is a free agent, teams can talk to him. Beckham is still in L.A. rehabbing from a torn ACL that he suffered in the Super Bowl. A schedule change for the Chargers. The NFL moved their game against the Chiefs on November 20th from Sunday afternoon to the league's Sunday night showcase on NBC. The Lakers and Clippers face each other tonight at Crypto.com Arena. The Clippers are the home team. The Lakers are trying to snap a 3-game losing streak. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. This sports report was brought to you by MVP Accident Attorneys. When it comes to your settlement, we're slam dunk. Call 833-MVP-WINS or check their website at themvp.com for a free case review.
Hiring the right law firm can be the difference between a rewarding settlement and striking out. Call the pros at MVP Accident Attorneys at 833-MVP-WINS for your free consultation.
Call me your MVP.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at J.P. Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
I find it important to be here as a business owner and entrepreneur because I want some more capital, and I'm not really a fan of loans. So it's really interesting to see how people have gained wealth and the different spaces to advance my money in, whether it be stocks, digital.
And why do you think it's important for companies like Chase to promote building generational wealth in black and brown communities?
I mean, it's important to me as one of the biggest banks in the world to promote black wealth because most banks don't really, in my opinion, care about the money that I'm spending as they would opposed to a white counterpart that might have the same dollar amount in their accounts.
Well, you can bet on Chase offering insights on financial health, the path to home ownership, and entrepreneurship. It's the Chase Advancing Black Wealth Tour.
Roll out. Nissan is proud to be a partner of KBLA, and right now during their fall sales event, Zero Down delivers any new or pre-owned car at Gardena Nissan. They're located conveniently on Redondo Beach Boulevard at Western, and they specialize in helping folks out who have no credit, bad credit, bankruptcies, or repos. The folks at Gardena Nissan will take fantastic care of you and help you get into the car you need and deserve at a spectacular price. Visit them today or shop online at GardinaNissan.com. GardinaNissan.com. The all-new Gardena Nissan is proud to be a partner of KBLA, and right now during their fall sales event, 0 down delivers any new or pre-owned car at Gardena Nissan. For the best deals, log on to GardinaNissan.com. 0 down on approved credit. GardinaNissan.com. Roll out.
Did you know fixing outdoor leaks can save 27 to 90 gallons of water per day? Even tiny leaks can be huge water wasters. Conserving water starts with a few simple water-saving actions at home and in your yard, like adjusting your sprinklers and adding drip irrigation so you water only where it's needed. We can all do our part to conserve water. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more water-saving tips. Save water, save California.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
It is the day after. I'm Tavis Smiley, and he is Dr. Nicola Corte, and you are listening to KBLA Talk 1580. Time now for a conversation with our Chief National Political Affairs Analyst and host of A More Perfect Union, heard Sundays on the 10s here on this station. And Dr. Corte, as you know, is also the co-host of Fox Soul's Black Report. Nicola Corte, how are you the day after, sir?
I'm doing well, Tavis. How are you doing?
If I complained about being in great, you know me, I'm glad to be here, but I'm not going to lie. I'm a little ambivalent this morning. On the one hand, I am disappointed that so many of these national black political figures who we hoped would pull this off yesterday failed. Stacey Abrams, Sherry Beasley, Mandela Barnes. There are others, of course, on that list. We talked about this in our first half hour with Dr. Jason Nichols out of the University of Maryland, so we won't spend more time talking about the black national political figures we hoped would win yesterday and did not. So on that, in that regard, I'm a little disappointed. On the other hand, I'm delighted that it appears that extremism got spanked last night. That's how I read it. How do you read it?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I for all the election deniers out there, while there were a lot of them that did get elected, not nearly as many of them did, considering how many are out there. I mean, this is a sign of the times. This is where we're at, where, really keeping election deniers out of office is considered a major win. I think yesterday we saw the power of incumbency. And I think just this morning I was talking to Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta about the race in Pennsylvania. John Fetterman running against Mehmet Oz, and I had asked him to sort of weigh in on some of the other sort of races that have become nationalized, and he pointed out we can't underestimate the power of incumbency. I mean, I think the power of incumbency really helped Ron Johnson in Wisconsin. It really helped Marco Rubio in Florida running against Val Demings. It really helped Brian Kemp running against Stacey Abrams. And so I think we can't underestimate that. But for all the years where folks have said, well, I would love to for governor or for Senate, but they can't raise the money or this or that. Well, we've demonstrated that we can raise money. We demonstrated a lot of things that folks said we previously couldn't, but we just weren't able to get over the finish line in some cases. But progress is being made. I mean, right there in Los Angeles. I'm sure we're going to talk about the race between Caruso and Karen Bass, but the fact that right now, we're at the 50-yard line, and for weeks and weeks and weeks, I know on KBLA we've been encouraging our listeners, to vote, to get their vote by mail ballots in, and I have a feeling that those votes are going to make the biggest difference, not just in Los Angeles, but in still too many races across the country that are too close to call.
I'll come back to the national stuff in just a moment, but this race is, of course, getting national attention, the race you just mentioned between Rick Caruso and Karen Bass. Let me come to this right quick, again, since you teed it up. If Karen Bass can pull this off, this is the thing I'm most excited about. I'm not excited just about her making history as the first woman, as the second African-American. All that's cool. She's more progressive than Rick Caruso by far, so I'd be delighted to see Karen Bass win. But the thing that most excites me, frankly, is what the conversation in the nation would be if this black woman could beat back a $100 million assault. That is unprecedented, as much as her being the first black woman and the first woman period, to beat back a $100 million assault would be the kind of stuff that we'd be talking about politically for years to come. So take a stab at that. What do you think the dialogue will be if, in fact, she can pull this off against $100 million?
I think you make a marvelous point, Tavis, and really it underscores the fight between organized people and organized money. And Rick Caruso has a lot of it. I mean, we're just talking about the money that he spent. We haven't even talked about any independent expenditures that were spent on his behalf, right? And so it's been a lot of money that has poured into this race. And from the very beginning, has placed her bet on the people. That's a part of who she is and how she has governed in elected office and the work that she did even before elected office. She has always put her trust and faith in the people, and I think it's going to take a few days, but I think the people are going to deliver a victory to her. I think in addition to that being a contest between organized people and organized money, I think it's important to point out that Congresswoman Bass has an opportunity to do something really extraordinary, something that we haven't seen in the City of Angels really since Tom Bradley. One of the major powers of any mayor is the power to appoint to boards and commissions and key positions in the city of Los Angeles. And, I think about the Mark Ridley Thomases, and the Tavis Smileys, and so many the Tom Bradley era that went on to assume leadership positions in government, in media, across sectors. And so I think she has an opportunity to really win the future, by putting on the next generation of folks to lead the city of Los Angeles and, quite frankly, lead the nation because she has a national reach. Dare I say an international reach.
Yeah. Let me go back national again to your point now. So the narrative today on all the networks and all the major newspapers is that Trump was the big loser last night. I assume you agree with that analysis.
I do, although this is where I would split the difference.
Okay.
While former President Trump was a big loser last night, Trumpism is still alive and well. And so when we talk about extremism and all the ways that it has manifested in this election cycle, whether we're talking about political violence or we're talking about election deniers running and actually being elected, or we're talking about folks being able to be seen as credible candidates for office when they have no plan to fix the very thing that people want to be fixed. And so I would say Trumpism is still alive and well, but I think the prospects of Trump mounting a re-election campaign, the prospects of Trump riding any sort of voter enthusiasm coming out of the midterms to power a re-election bid, I think last night threw some cold water on that.
It might have thrown some cold water on it, but we were told last weekend to expect that on November 14th, that would be this coming Tuesday, I guess? Tuesday. Yeah, a week from Election Day. No, Election Day was the 8th, so Monday. Is it Monday? Yeah, I'm sleepy. Thank you. I'm told the 14th is Monday. I have it on good advice from Miles Lowe that Monday is the 14th. Okay. I'm going to go with that because Miles Lowe told me it was or is, and Nicola has seconded that motion. So I will accept that Monday is the 14th. Anyway, the point I was trying to get to before I started babbling is that Donald Trump, we were told some days ago, is preparing to make his announcement on the 14th. Nicola, that he is in fact going to run for the White House once again. If, in fact, that holds up, and on Monday, the 14th, he makes that announcement after what happened last night. Again, some of this stuff is still up in the air, who controls the Senate, who controls the House. But just given where we are right now, set the stage for how this announcement is going to be regarded or not regarded, treated or maltreated next Monday if Trump actually does this.
I think based upon what we're seeing, based upon the performance of Republicans across the country last night, I'm not sure how much enthusiasm there is for a Trump reelection bid. I'm sure, I'm not a Republican, and so I'll leave it to Republican insiders, to figure out what they're going to do about it. But, I will say that coming out of last night, I would suspect that there's less enthusiasm for a Trump reelection bid than there was a couple days prior. I mean, and when he wages this reelection campaign, as many folks are expecting, he's going to have some competition. I think there are folks out there like Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia, that is also reading the tea leaves. I think folks like Ron DeSantis, who just won his reelection bid in Florida, he's reading the tea leaves. Greg Abbott of Texas is reading the tea leaves. And so, what looked like sort of a glide path for Trump a few days ago, even certainly a week ago, is looking less and less and less like a glide path and a toss-up, a grab bag, if you will, for a Republican, our next Republican nominee for president.
You mentioned Youngkin in Virginia, Abbott in Texas, and DeSantis in Florida. Let me just say this. Ron DeSantis last night, whether you like him or loathe him, and I'm in the latter category, but given his policies, but he didn't just win last night. He smacked down Charlie Crist last night, won by over 20 points. And that's significant because in the state of Florida, where Donald Trump resides now, if he does announce on Monday that he's running, it is likely he's going to have to get past Ron DeSantis at some point. And again, Ron DeSantis made it clear last night that he is clearly in the inner circle, if not coming out the blocks first, for Republicans who would throw their names in the hat credibly on that side at least of the ledger, given the way he won in Florida by 20 points. No Republican in the country last night did what Ron DeSantis did in Florida. That's after putting migrants on buses and shipping them here and there. He still won by 20 points in Florida last night. So, to me, Cordelai's point, we'll see in the coming days whether Donald Trump does in fact make the announcement and what happens when all the bloodletting starts with other Republican governors who want to get in this race. When we come forward, one of the other things I saw last night that I didn't see a lot of talk about, but it certainly occurred to me as I watched these returns, is that there is a moment, and I think we're in this moment now, for a credible third party in this country. There's no way that you can be politically astute and watch those results last night and not see an opening, not just a crack, but a wide opening for a legitimate, credible third party candidate in this country. The data was just, it was so obvious to me just watching the returns last night. That's my take on it. I want to hear what our chief national political affairs analyst has to say about that notion when we come forward with Dr. Cordelai Cortez on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where truth prevails. The Turkey station is down the dial.
The Institute for Diversity Certification is all about the 3 Ds: dedication, determination, and discipline. Learn more about our globally recognized diversity certification program today by calling 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192, or visit diversitycertification.org. As the #1 organization for certified diversity professionals and also certified diversity executive credentials, diversitycertification.org will provide an opportunity for you to demonstrate dedication to the field, determination to make progress, and more discipline to your process. Go today and learn more about the diversity certification system. Call 1-800-983-6192. Again, 1-800-983-6192. Or go to diversitycertification.org. That's diversitycertification.org. The standard of excellence, equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Nisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by LA Care Health Plan. This is the week we have all awaited. The highly anticipated sequel to Black Panther is set to release this week in theaters, Wakanda Forever, starring Tina Huerta, Michael B. Jordan, Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, to name a few. Now, Black Panther made about $202 million in 2018 on opening weekend. Do you think that this sequel will do the same? Tweet us to let us know at KBLA 1580. And thanks to our new sponsors, LA Care Health Plan, the largest publicly operated health plan in the country, is pleased to announce that its LA Care covered products has the most affordable rates across all metal levels in Los Angeles County. And thanks to an extension of federal subsidies, some members will have premiums as low as $0 a month. Log on to lacare.org.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm not one who follows Donald Trump news. I try to avoid Donald Trump as often as I can, as regularly as I can, but apparently he has made an announcement that he is going to make, I'm quoting, a very big announcement coming November 15th. That's his phrase. A very big announcement will be made by former President Donald Trump on November 15th. He will make that announcement from Mar-a-Lago, where they went and retrieved the documents that he stole from the White House, I might add. But from Mar-a-Lago, next Tuesday, November 15th, former President Donald Trump has announced that he's making a very big announcement. So now we know, Nicole, the date and time. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. That's all you got to say, huh?
I'm sorry. I was trying to keep my lunch down.
Let me go. I'm sorry. Let me jump from former President Donald Trump to the current President Joe Biden. We are told that the White House today, as I mentioned earlier in this hour, is feeling giddy and gleeful. We're told that from Jen Psaki, the former White House press secretary. I'm also reading that the president this morning feels relief and vindication after these results yesterday. Relief and vindication. Should he?
I think he should, because, we were looking at a Democratic bloodbath. Remember, everybody was talking about the red wave, right? Well, the red wave never really materialized. But it didn't. But it didn't materialize, not so much because of the president's accomplishments, but it's the organized people. It was we the people that made a big difference. It wasn't any particular policy solution. Yes, the Democrats had an agenda that they could run on. They had accomplishments that they could run on, but there was a lot of organizing work that went into this. There were a lot of campaigns. There were a lot of campaigns with folks of color that were at the top of the ticket. Folks of color that were running campaigns that made a big difference, and so. The president should take some credit, but I think the credit really belongs to the organizers this election cycle, that had their job cut out for them. I mean, when we had this conversation this summer, the latter part of this summer, Tavis, right? We weren't expecting a midterm election like this, and so, Democrats really owe a lot to their base. For showing up and showing out in the face of voter suppression, in the face of the threat of and intimidation. I mean, there was a lot that we were up against. And so, to all those poll workers out there and those organizers out there, I hope they're feeling not just relieved, but the gratitude of a nation that felt like we were on the brink.
Just a few minutes left with Nicola Corte. We'll get to that question I want to put to him about whether or not this is a propitious time for a legitimate third-party candidate to pop up. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, putting the spotlight on culture and community. The Rodney King Foundation works in the community to promote positive race relations and achieve social justice. The foundation provides advocacy, educational scholarships, and the powerful Walk in Love initiative. The Rodney King Foundation seeks a world of hope, tolerance, and social justice, where divisiveness has been overcome and all people live. Executive Director, Founder, Laura King is striving to enhance the community's self-esteem, health, social services, and social justice locally and worldwide. The foundation is dedicated to continuing the message of Laura's father, the great Rodney King, to promote peace and #GetAlong. For more information, please visit rodneyking.org or call 626-541-2907. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ew. Stuck in a cycle of rewashing your clothes? Because you can't remove tough laundry odor? When detergent by itself can't cut it, use new Downy Rinse and Refresh. With the breakthrough odor-removing formula, it removes odors in one wash, better than the leading value detergent in 3 washes, keeping all your laundry fresh. Now you can break the cycle of rewashing with Downy Rinse and Refresh.
Health is Wealth and Medicare and Covered California's open enrollment for medical insurance is here. RHJ Insurance Agency can help you find affordable rates and a plan that's just right for you and your family. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote. Open enrollment is here and affordable coverage is just a phone call away. Call 562-204-6120 for your free quote and get the coverage you need. Go to www.rhjins.com.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Nicola Corte, to back up my sentiment and my feeling last night watching these results, that now is a propitious time for a third-party candidate to sort of pop up. I'm just reading online right now a new poll that's out. Over half of Americans believe that both Democrats and Republicans do such a poor job that a third major party is needed. Not just possible, but needed. How do you read that data?
I really think that it's a great idea. We talked about having a credible, competitive third party in this country for a long time now, but it's been difficult in terms of helping that to materialize. I think it's more likely to see that on the local level than on the federal level in terms of, a serious third party sort of, presidential candidate or a serious third party folks winning elected office on the federal level. I think part of what we need to do, Tavis, to operationalize that long held idea is we need to create the kind of infrastructure that exists to support third-party candidates, right? Right now, there are a lot of, pollsters and all sorts of, election and campaigns vendors that exist to serve the two-party system, right? And you're not going to have the kind of support that's needed in order to win nationwide, if that infrastructure doesn't change, right? And so as long as the campaign and elections economy is surviving off of a two-party system, it's going to make it very hard for a third party to really have the tools, the talent, and treasure in order to be successful in a nationwide move in an attempt to offer the people a third choice that can be really competitive.
I hear you point about infrastructure, and I would not debate you on the point about infrastructure, but I do believe still that the right charismatic candidate that can tap who either has money or can tap into money, much less a spirit, of angst and disappointment that I think is permeating in our country right now. I think the right charismatic candidate at this moment could do some damage in the next presidential race. We shall see whether that materializes. But again, these numbers last night were so evenly split. There was no red wave, and there are a number of ways to read that. And one of the ways to read it is that not just the Democrats are all that and then some, but that people are just disappointed in both parties. And I think, again, this is an opening. And we will see if I'm right about that. But again, the right charismatic candidate at the right time could, I think, do some damage. We shall see. I got 30 seconds left. Right quick. How does Joe Biden govern in a divided Washington?
That's a good question. I think that's probably what the president's going to be thinking about in the coming weeks as they head into the lame duck session of Congress. Joe Biden, his experience in the Senate has prepared him to be able to get something done. The question is, what can he get done, and where are Republicans willing to play ball with this president for the next 2 years?
Fair enough. Nick Cortez, the moderator of A More Perfect Union, Sundays on the 10s, and co-host of Fox Soul's Black Report. Nick Cortez, good to have you on, sir. We'll do it again soon.
Always. You take good care. Get some rest.
All right. Thank you, sir. Same to you. More of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.